Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the channel. I hope your day and your weekend are going very well so far. The NFL regular season is officially over, and with that comes the NFL playoffs. That's right, guys. The NFL Wildcard weekend is officially here. We've got a really fun matchup to cover in today's video between the Washington Commanders and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This playoff edition of Sunday Night Football should be a really exciting showdown between two elite offenses, two really likable and fun quarterbacks. And as always, guys, I've got some really great picks to go ahead and share with you. But first, as always, people, please make sure to go ahead and hit the subscribe button, hit that like button, and drop a comment down below. It helps the channel grow, and it really does mean a ton to us. We have a ton of great content coming out right now on the channel between NBA and, of course, all of our playoff NFL content. We got a ton of great videos. I already did my video earlier for the Chargers-Texans game. By the time you watch this video, that game will already be over. We have individual videos for every single playoff game, so you don't want to miss any of those. Myself, Evan, Trey are splitting the work there. We're each doing a couple of videos each week. And, of course, we still have our college football content going on. I had a really strong weekend this weekend. I picked the Notre Dame winner and the Ohio State winner, as well as some other picks in each of those games. So we're on a really good run here coming into today's video with our football content. And we'll be doing content all throughout the postseason, so make sure, guys, to go ahead and hit that subscribe button to not miss a single video we put out for the playoffs. Like I said, guys, really fun wild card matchup between the 4 seed, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the NFC, and the 5 seed Washington Commanders in the NFC. Two teams that were really fun this year. Both are very similar. It's very weird these two teams got matched up because in a lot of ways, they're the same team. Let's dive a little deeper into this matchup, guys. Let's jump over to the NFL dashboard over on GuyBostonSports.com. By the way, guys, if you want access to all of these dashboards, NFL, NBA, all of our dashboards, you have to become a member over at GuyBostonSports.com. Now, the beauty of this is the membership is very, very cheap. I believe for the entire sports package for all the dashboards, I think it's only $3.99 a month. It costs less money than a Starbucks coffee, and it's probably going to make you more money than Starbucks ever really could. And I don't know why Starbucks would make you money. So, yeah. $3.99 for a chance to become a better sports bettor and maybe even make some good profit to buy more Starbucks coffees. But as always, guys, the picks are 100% free. These are just a little additional things that we offer for you guys to help make better sports bets. The link is down below in the description, or you can go ahead over to GuyBostonSports.com and check it out for yourself. All right, guys, so NFL dashboard here. We got Commanders, Buccaneers. Again, both these teams, really solid teams, specifically on the offensive side of the football. Top left corner of the screen, we can go ahead and see some of the trends this year. Washington, obviously 12-win team, 70% win rate. Tampa Bay, 10-win team, 58.8% win rate. Both of these teams were positive cover teams, specifically Washington, though, 62.5% cover rate this year. Both were also heavy over teams. Washington, 64.7% hit rate on the over this year. Tampa Bay, 70.6% over hit rate this year. Again, those are just a couple of trends to look at right off the bat here. Look at the matchup for the overall season rankings here. Again, two of the top 5 best scoring offenses in the NFL. Washington 5th, Tampa Bay 4th. And if we scroll down a little further, you see again, defensively, 18th in scoring defense for Washington, 16th in scoring defense for Tampa Bay. Like I said, these two teams are basically the synthesis of each other. That was definitely not the right word, but it's to put it plainly, this is the Spider-Man meme, right? It's no, I'm Spider-Man. No, I'm Spider-Man. They're pointing at each other. That is what these two teams are. It's literally the Spider-Man meme come to life in NFL form. These are basically the same team. Both offensive juggernauts with great young quarterbacks. Although I guess Baker Mayfield, I don't know if you'd consider him young anymore. He still feels young to me, but he actually has been in the league for a long time now. Both exciting, high-flying offenses, and both have defenses that are, let's just say, subpar, to say the least. Now, the difference is that Washington defensively, from a passing standpoint, they've actually got a solid pass defense, whereas Tampa Bay has a very, very weak pass defense. You see Tampa Bay 29th in passing yards allowed per game this year, one of the lowest marks in the league. However, their run defense, top 5 best. On the flip side, again, Washington top 5 passing yards allowed, but they are 30th in rushing yards allowed. So they're, again, very similar teams, very funky how close they are, with some minor defenses there. Let's go ahead and scroll down to DVOA to get a little more of an advanced look at these two teams. Again, to tell you guys how they're so close to each other, overall DVOA, when you take into consideration both offense and defense, Washington is 10th in the NFL, Tampa Bay 11th. Offensively, overall in DVOA, Washington is 6th, Tampa Bay is 7th. And defensively, which might be surprising to some, Tampa Bay actually ranked a little quite a bit higher than Washington here in DVOA. The Bucs 16th in defensive DVOA, the Commanders 23rd. The Commanders' run defense is atrociously bad by DVOA standards. Again, Tampa Bay's passing defense 23rd in DVOA. It's also pretty bad, but Tampa Bay's 6th best rushing defense in terms of DVOA in the NFL. So some really good marks there. And again, if you guys have access to the dashboard, you can play around with it and look at all the data. The moral of the story doesn't really change, whether it be home or away, last 3 games, overall season. All the numbers paint the same picture. Both really solid offensive teams. Specifically, both are actually really good passing teams, although I think Washington is a slightly better rushing offense. Both have subpar defense with some legitimate weaknesses that can be attacked on the defensive side of the football. No point in me continuing on and on, repeating basically the same things over and over. So let's jump right into our first pick. And I'm not going to take too much time here. I'm not going to take too much time to explain the advantages from a statistical standpoint because, again, like we just saw, for the Buccaneers, the Commanders have a weak run defense. They can run all over them. For the Buccaneers, they have a weak pass defense. Washington can throw all over them. That's pretty obvious, and I don't have to go ahead and spend 20 minutes talking about that. But for my first pick, I am going with the Buccaneers here, -3 on the spread. And instead of focusing on maybe the statistical side of things, I'm more going to focus on the other factors here. First and foremost, okay, the Buccaneers are the home team. That home field advantage, especially in the playoffs, does play a key factor. Now, Tampa Bay wasn't this otherworldly team at home this year, but they did have a 55.6% win rate and a 55.6% cover rate at home this season. Now, Washington actually a pretty good win rate on the road this year. However, just a 43% cover rate on the road this season. So Tampa Bay does have a little bit of advantage there when taking home field into consideration. But above all, guys, one of the reasons why I really love the Bucs in this spot is due to the experience that Tampa Bay has and the inexperience that Washington does. For the Buccaneers side of things, there's still a lot of players left over on this team from that Tom Brady Super Bowl run from a few years ago. Now, every year it dwindles lower and lower and lower, but there's still a healthy amount of players on this team that remain from that Super Bowl run. And even if you take the Super Bowl run out of the equation, okay, they made the playoffs last year. There's a lot of playoff experience in each and every position on this team. Even Baker Mayfield himself has now had multiple playoff starts in his career. Todd Bowles was the defensive coordinator during that Super Bowl run. So across the board, you have a lot of experience in the postseason from this team. When you parlay that with the home field advantage, I do think that's the clear area where Tampa Bay can go ahead and take advantage in this matchup. Yes, again, Tampa Bay should be able to find success running the football on the Commanders' defense. They should be able to get their points. And although Washington, they did rank from a passing yards perspective pretty solidly in their pass defense. If we go back to the DVOA rankings here for Washington, you'll see their pass defense wasn't that great. It was still 20th in the NFL in terms of DVOA. Washington has some clear advantages there from an offensive standpoint, but again, they kind of get negated because Washington on their offensive side can go ahead and score points on Tampa Bay. Where it really comes down to for me in this game, in this matchup, and why I like Tampa Bay on the spread, which by the way, -105 odds on FanDuel, pretty good value, is that experience versus inexperience. Now, some of you might say that's a stupid argument to make. I think it's legitimate because you have Jaden Daniels, who's had a fantastic season. Let's go ahead and clap it up for Washington real quick, because this season was not supposed to happen for them. Nobody saw this coming. I don't care if you're a diehard Washington fan. I think even you could honestly say you didn't see this coming. This team had the 2nd overall pick in last year's draft, which of course gave them Jaden Daniels for a reason. This team was horrible last year, and besides drafting Jaden Daniels, they didn't really add too much in the offseason. So the fact that this team, as they're currently constructed, with a new head coach, with a rookie quarterback, the fact they were able to take this team, which a lot of the same pieces carrying over from last year's awful season, and they won 12 games and made the playoffs as the 5 seed in the NFC is pretty wild. Or 6 seed, and I'm now just realizing that I completely botched that earlier in the video. Tampa Bay is the 3 seed and the Commanders are the 6 seed. So if you guys want to go flame me in the comments, I'm sure you guys probably stopped the video at that point and ran to the comments to flame me. Yes, it was a misspeak on my part. It's Tampa Bay is the 3 seed. Yes, Tampa Bay is the 3 seed and Washington is the 6 seed. I apologize. I promise you guys I am prepared for this video. That was playoff seeding. I'm still thinking about last week. Anyways, back to my main point here. I do think, Washington, incredible year, all that good stuff, but this is still a rookie quarterback. And as great as Jaden Daniels has been, I think going into enemy territory with a more experienced team, a more battle-tested team in terms of they've been here before, they know the stakes of the playoffs. Rookie quarterbacks in the playoffs typically struggle. I don't trust Jaden Daniels in this spot. At the end of the day, I think Baker Mayfield and the experience of this Buccaneers team gets the job done. It's going to be a tight game. It's going to be a close game, but I do think Tampa Bay will win, cover the spread, and get on out of there and advance to the divisional round. And there's no harm in Washington. If they lose this game, you were never supposed to be here anyways, okay? You're playing with house money at this point. The Commanders are top 4 in the NFL in cap space for this offseason. They're going to go ahead and bolster this team. Washington is going to be a team to watch in the NFL for years to come. That's just the truth of the matter. They haven't even built really around Jaden Daniels yet. Wait until they get some more pieces on the defense. Wait until they finally shore up their run defense, and maybe they add another receiver for Jaden Daniels. And the possibilities are endless for this Commanders team. I just think they're a little too early to this spot, and I think Tampa Bay is a team that is more prepared in terms of timeline to go ahead and compete in this spot. Again, Washington will give them a healthy challenge, but I do think the Buccaneers, with their experience, with their offense, with the personnel that they do have, I think they'll go ahead and take care of business at home here and grab the W. 2 last data points before we move on to the next pick. We do have the last little insight provided by Outlier here. The Buccaneers are 6-3 against the spread in their last 9 games, which is a 67% hit rate. So we have that on our side there. And then we also have this final data point here. The Washington Commanders are 3-10, just a 23.1% hit rate on the money line in their last 13 games as an underdog. So you see, when they've been an underdog, including this year, they've lost a lot of these games. Now, they beat Cincinnati, they were an underdog in that game. They beat Arizona, they were underdog in that game. They beat Philadelphia. But you do see losses to the Eagles, losses to the Ravens, losses to Tampa Bay. And that's the other thing I didn't even mention yet in this video, is the fact that these two teams did play earlier this year, back in September. Now, with the season opener, so both teams, specifically Washington, I think is a much different team than they were back that first meeting, but the Buccaneers did beat them handedly 37-20 in that spot. All right, guys, I know I rambled on for quite a while there. I promise you guys the last couple picks here, I'm not going to spend as much time talking about them. So our second pick in today's slate, instead of targeting the overall total, which is at 50.5, which I'll be honest, I do like the over at 50.5, but there is some sharp action that is sprinkled in on the under, which has kind of steered me away from taking that. Instead, I'm going to take this instead. We're going Buccaneers team total over 25.5 points. It just gives a little bit of insurance here in the event that, let's say this game ends 27-21, which I think is a realistic score for this game. The Bucs win 27-21. Tampa Bay scores enough points to cash this one, but the over misses just barely. Look, if the over hits, we're still probably good here with this bet. If it doesn't hit, hopefully the Buccaneers do their part. And again, sticking with my line of thinking, I think Tampa Bay will win the game and they will carry most of the scoring. I think their team total over 25.5 is not a bad bet here. We're getting it for -138 over on FanDuel. And you see, so far this year, the data is really solid across the board here. A 71% hit rate on this team total over for Tampa Bay this year. They've cashed it in 12 out of 17 games, averaging 29.53 points per game this season. Even when they missed the mark, they just barely missed. 24 points, versus the Chiefs, 24 points versus Dallas. They've cashed this over in 6 of their last 7 games to kind of narrow it down a little bit. But one more thing to go ahead and show you guys here is games with Mike Evans. So Mike Evans obviously is a huge factor for this offense here. So if we go ahead and do the filter to show what the Buccaneers have looked like this year with Mike Evans, a 79% hit rate. 11 out of 14 games this year when Mike Evans has played, they've cashed the over. They're averaging 30.86 points per game. Not a huge difference in the data, but there is obviously a slight increase in the numbers when they have Mike Evans. Again, 11 out of 14 games, 79% hit rate. A close miss there versus the Cowboys. But overall, pretty good numbers. And again, the last time that these two teams played back in September, the Buccaneers did score 37 points in that game. I do think Washington, even defensively, they're better than they were back then. I still think Tampa Bay to score 26 points in this game is a very reasonable outcome. Again, overall, the Commanders on the season, if we refer back to the dashboard here, DVOA, we know they weren't that great. Overall, their scoring defense was 18th in the NFL, giving up 23 points per game. So I do think Tampa Bay, being the great offense that they are, should be able to score 26 points in this matchup. And then wrapping things up, guys, we have 2 player props to close up the video. My first one here is Bucky Irving of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers over 87.5 rushing yards. Now, we're getting this one on FanDuel for -113 odds. So pretty good value on this prop here for Bucky Irving. Now, the overall data on the season is not fantastic. You see just a 29% hit rate. 5 out of 17 games he's cashed the over, averaging 66 rushing yards per game this season. However, if we narrow it down a little bit here to the last 5 games, you'll see a 60% hit rate for Bucky Irving. 3 out of 5 games, averaging 78 rushing yards per game over his last 5 games. If we even narrow it down even further than that, 3 of his last 4 games he's cashed the over and has been looking pretty impressive for Tampa Bay. Over the course of the season, he's now overtaken Rachaad White as the #1 running back on this Tampa Bay team. We look down below here to the rush share here. Bucky Irving has a 42.9% rush share this season, 207 carries, as opposed to Rachaad White's 144. Now, Rachaad White still gets a healthy amount of carries there with a 29.8% run share. But again, that's the overall data. Now, if we narrow it down to just the last 5 games, you see Bucky Irving has really taken over this running back room. Look at the last 5 games. He's averaging about 15 carries per game. That one game versus the Raiders obviously brings his numbers all the way down. But look at the last 4 games. He's had at least 15 carries in each of his last 4 games, averaging 4.7 rushing yards per attempt, which is pretty solid. And if you look at the rush share percentage here for Bucky Irving over the last 4 games, 38% run share versus the Chargers, 70% run share versus the Cowboys, 50% run share versus the Panthers, and a 61% run share versus New Orleans. So he's getting a healthy amount of carries over their last few games. In Tampa Bay, they run the ball about 44% of the time, which is actually slightly above the league average. The last time these two teams played back on September 8th, he had 62 rushing yards in the season opener, which obviously fell short of the line, but he only had 9 carries in that game. It's still a 30% run share, but only 9 carries in that game. I expect him to definitely get more carries this time around. He averaged about 6.9, pause for applause, rushing yards per attempt the last time they played. So he only had 9 carries. If we see him get over closer to that 15 to 16 to 17 carry range with that average of 6.9 rushing yards per attempt, we could see ourselves a very clear cash in this spot. And again, referring back to the dashboard, remembering that Washington this year, the 26th ranked team in the NFL in terms of DVOA this season, their rushing yards per game, 30th in the NFL, giving up 137.5 rushing yards per game. We go back over here, the matchup versus running backs in the top right corner of the screen. You see in the green 29th, they're giving up 114.3 rushing yards per game to opposing running backs. Consider the matchup, considering the amount of rushes he's getting over the last few games, the way this Bucs offense has been running. I think Bucky Irving over 87.5 rushing yards is a really solid spot to go ahead and take in this game. And our 4th and final pick in today's video, guys, as you know, I always do in my single game NFL videos, these touchdown player prop giveaways. So in this one here, we're going with Mike Evans anytime touchdown, which you're getting for plus 105 on DraftKings. It's the only sportsbook you can find it for plus money at the time of recording. How it works, guys, is very simple. All you have to do is comment Evans or Mike Evans or Mike or some variation of Mike Evans' name. And if he cashes this player prop, if he scores a touchdown in the spot, one lucky commenter will win a free $25 Amazon gift card. So that's the giveaway. Comment Mike Evans or some variation of his name. And if he scores a touchdown in this game, one lucky commenter will win a free $25 Amazon gift card. Now, the numbers for Mike Evans, not too shabby here. 5 of his last 10 games, he's cashed the over with a couple of multi-touchdown games, averaging 0.8 touchdowns per game over his last 10 games. So far in 2024, again, a 50% hit rate. 7 out of 14 games, he's cashed the over, averaging 0.79 touchdowns per game this year. It's not very often that Mike Evans goes multiple games in a row without a touchdown. This year, you see just that little 2-week stretch there where he played Detroit and Denver, where he had no touchdowns in either of those 2 games. Besides that, every other game this year, when he misses, the very next game he scores a touchdown. Oh, look at that. The last game out versus New Orleans, he didn't score a touchdown. Does that little pattern mean anything? Probably not, but it is something to note. And the head-to-head numbers, of course, he had 2 touchdowns the last time these 2 teams played back on September 8th. So all we need to do is get him to get half of that, and we should be good to go in this spot. Also, I believe Marshawn Lattimore will probably match up on him in this game if he I don't see him on the injury report. Yeah, all indications that Marshawn Lattimore, I don't see him on the injury report also. Okay, we don't have to worry about that. Mike Evans versus Marshawn Lattimore, if you know anything about the history with those 2 guys, their rivalry is so much fun. Seeing them go head-to-head in a playoff game is going to be a lot of fun to go ahead and see. They hate each other, and I think Mike Evans loves to show out when he plays against Marshawn Lattimore. All right, guys, those are all my picks in today's video. I know we went a little long there. We rambled for a little bit in today's video, but just tried to break it down for you guys to give you guys where the advantages are, what the numbers look like. So again, normally I like to keep the single game videos a little shorter. We ran a little longer today, but it is the playoffs, so I guess it calls for a little different circumstances. One more time, guys, please make sure to go ahead and hit the subscribe button, hit that like button, and drop a comment down below. We'll be back at some point next week. We haven't really decided how we're going to split the videos next week between myself, Evan, Trey, who's taking what games. So you will see me at some point next week with another single game video. I don't know which one. Probably the Lions game because I do have a future bet on Detroit. So maybe I'll get that game there. Yeah. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next time. Until then, I hope you're all winners. Enjoy Wildcard Weekend. Enjoy the beginning of the NFL playoffs. Let's go Tampa Bay.